Welcome to the Rainbow Speakers panel presented by Elgin County Pride. I'm Andrew Roster and I use the pronouns he and him. We're very excited about this panel discussion today about small town prides. But before we get started, I want to acknowledge the traditional lands that I'm coming to you from, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and Lenni Lenape people. And on behalf of everyone at Elgin County Pride, we want to say a big thank you, Chimagwech, to all of the people who have stewarded this land and continue to do so. So let's jump right in. I want to introduce our first two guests. Our only guests for a panel. And I was joking before, can we call two guests and a host a panel? I guess so, right?
Sure.
Well, we're doing it. I'd say it's more of a conversation. But anyway, let's start with you, Murphy. I wanted you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about where you're located and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Murphy-Issac. I use the pronouns he or they. Primarily what I do in the community is just a whole bunch of queer advocacy. Been doing it since I was 14, and I've just recently shifted into an adult ally role within that advocacy, as I do work with the PFLAG London Youth Group. Check us out, by the way. And I live in St. Thomas.
Awesome. And Devon, are you in St. Thomas as well?
I am.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is Devon. I go by he, him, and they. I've pretty much grown up in St. Thomas and have lived here on and off for the last 25 years, roughly, give or take some trips out west. I work as a nurse, sexual health and harm reduction. And I also volunteer quite frequently in the community at St. Thomas, London area.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all you do. We love our healthcare professionals, so thank you. So let's jump in. The conversation is about small town pride. And I was involved in London Pride for almost a decade. This fly is going to drive me nuts. I'll just call that out now. And, you know, Pride is really grown in a lot of communities, and it's so nice to see smaller communities get a Pride. So we're in the middle of Elgin County Pride. What does Pride mean to you, and what does having a Pride in a smaller community mean to you? Let's start with you, Murphy.
Yeah. So personally, Pride to me means being free to truly embrace all the parts of myself that I feel larger society historically has said aren't appropriate and aren't allowed. And to me, Pride means taking that and saying, you know what, my life, I'm okay with how I am, and your opinion doesn't really matter, and that's okay. And with regards to Pride specifically in a small community and in the rural area, which I should also mention, I grew up outside of St. Thomas, in a much more rural area than St. Thomas. It's very isolating, but I think now as an adult, especially seeing all the change that we're starting to make and all the progress that's come out, it's really neat to find those very small, tight-knit communities with other queer folks that I don't think you really see that much in larger cities.
Absolutely. And we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, finding our community and that stuff. I apologize for the bit of breakup there. Internet's always fun, especially in rural communities. So Devon, it's Pride. Happy Pride. What does Pride mean to you? And what does it mean to have a Pride in Elgin County?
So Pride for me is kind of loaded, that it can mean a lot of positive things and negative things. I try to channel the positive and help bring up the people around me. And really, I focus on Pride as just like a community and a loving of my friends and family and chosen family. For the most part, it's just where I feel like we get to focus on being proud of one another and proud of basically the relationships that we forged over time. whether or not it's because you've dated each other, or how it's come about. But like growing up here, to have a pride and to have a community that cares about one another is huge. It's really nice to know that we can put something together and people will turn out for it and people will support us. And it's not just a negative thing. That now, like what used to be years ago, when if we would have pride things or talk about pride things, we were really worried about the backlash. And now, unless you're like on a Facebook St. Thomas Happenings group, it's a lot less limited. Everyone seems to have their voices online, but in like out in the public now, it feels safer for the most part, which is really nice.
That's
right?
a progress, right? And that's really good. So I'll start with you on this one, Devon, then just to follow up on that then about the progress. You know, pride's political and, you know, we don't, over the years, we've really swayed away from taking, having political voices take up too much time in pride events. However, for pride flag raisings and things like that, it's really nice to see, you know, MPs and MPPs show their support. So, you know, seeing pride flags go up in the city and around at businesses, what does it mean to you to see a pride flag? Like the beautiful one I made behind me.
Right? I'm old enough to remember the neighborhood watch. And so that instills in me that feeling of like when I was little, if I was going for a walk and I was afraid or I was like up in arms a little bit about, you know, where I was walking, when I would see neighborhood watch signs, I knew that there were people, there were moms, there were parents, there were people that I could go to that would help me. And so when I see the rainbow flag up at schools or up at City Hall or on different cars or on different businesses, I feel like I have an ally there or I have someone in my community that I can go to, right? That it just makes me feel safer in my community. It makes me feel loved. It makes me feel just like I'm surrounded with people that care and not like in an American state.
Absolutely. So Murphy, same question. I'm curious to know your thoughts on what the pride flag going up means and all the support that's been around the community.
Yeah. I remember my very first pride flag raising that I was a part of was when I was still questioning and I hadn't really found my label or anything yet. And I remember just looking around and seeing all of these people, like people that I knew and didn't know. And there was just a crowd of all these people full on like, yeah, this is awesome. It's cool. Like, you know, like be yourselves, all this sort of thing. And I was like, ooh, maybe I don't have to be afraid of what this questioning stage means because no matter what side I end up on, at the end of it, it's going to be okay. And I still really get that sense of it's going to be okay when I see pride flag raisings, especially outside of schools and like City Hall and that sort of thing. And then with the smaller businesses, it's definitely what Devon said. I am slightly too young to remember Neighborhood Watch, but I do remember the feeling that kind of went around with that, and the sort of like, you know that house is safe, that if you really, really need someone that's going to be okay with you just being a person in their space, then it's okay. And so seeing businesses and places within the community having some form of pride display, anything like that, especially the year-round ones, those really say that, you know, you're faced with someone who's not treating you okay on the street, like just dip into that business for a few minutes and lose them, you know, like, or if you're having issues in your home and you just need to get out and be somewhere where you know you're not going to have a confrontation over your identity, you know, you can go to the bookstore or to the library or wherever, and it's just those little like flashlights for where we're safe.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. And Devon and I definitely remember that because we're older, but also block parent. And I don't even know if that's around anymore. But it's a symbol. And you mentioned, Murphy, about how it's nice when you see it year round. So, and you also said, you both touched on how you see a sense of community when you see that flag out and about. So how do you find a sense of community year round? What do you do personally? What do you see in the community, others, friends and family? Are there groups, social networks that you found? Let's start with Devon again.
COVID kind of dampened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it dampened things a little. Things are starting back up, which is nice to see. There's more events happening. Like in the past, like there have been drag shows in town. There have been dances. There was a group that got together once a month. But like going forward, we would like to start more things. That we would like to have more like community space that we can actually meet up and have a board games night, have a dance, have a trivia night, right? That going into the future, that there's just a brighter outlook on people being able to get together and to, be safe and loved with one another. That is really what I see going forward. Bearing in mind there could be a fourth wave, a fifth wave, a sixth wave, but besides that, right?
Like post-COVID, we're talking post-COVID, obviously. But
right.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then finding that community online, I don't think any event is going to be really successful unless you do a hybrid of virtual and in-person events, because I think for Pride specifically, it's been able to engage so many more people just from the safety of their own home, the privacy of their own home, reaching out to seniors and people that are shut in, can't get out. So I don't know. I think it's really exciting actually about where this will lead, as bad as all the things are, obviously. So Murphy,
there's accessibility, right? There's an accessibility that's available right now that we haven't seen.
Yeah. And then we can only build on it, which is really cool. So Murphy, on the same kind of line, just curious about your thoughts on all of that and about where you find your community and if online has helped during this time.
Yeah, for sure. So personally, for me, that finding community, especially in the time of COVID, when we can't do those things where we can actually gather in person, I think it comes a lot more subtly. And it's really unfortunate that it is so subtle, but it's also a safety aspect. So I really appreciate those moments where I can walk past another person on the street and see the cuffed shirt sleeves and be like, I know what's up. And they kind of give me the same look because of how I dress and how I act in public and all that. And I think that that's a really amazing sense of community that can come from that in just such a small way. When you can walk past 10 people on the street and know, oh my goodness, there's so many hidden queer people around this town. And while it might not be safe for all of them to be out and open and, literally walking down the street with a pride flag, because I will do that. I do not care. But for some folks, it's just not safe enough. And every time that I go out dressed in full pride gear, I know that I'm taking on a risk. But then we have that hidden network. We have those little signals for each other. We have those ways of letting each other know, hey, as alone you might look, you're not. We're all here supporting you and we all have your back. And then especially with that found family aspect, I feel like that's something that our community does really, really well. We are good at finding our found family. We're good at valuing our found family. And I honestly do think of it as one giant family because my found family happens to know like all of these other queer people that I'm aware of, and they're not in my found family, but they're in my found family's found family. So I'm looking forward for that big reunion after COVID, get all of the cousins together and just, I'm ready to see people in person, but I think we've done a really good job keeping up with each other given the circumstances.
You're absolutely right. If any community is resilient, it's ours. We found Pride started with us finding our community, right? And standing up together. So you're right. Nothing's going to stop us. That's why Pride events have happened. other events have, put off a year or two, and Pride is like, we're not taking a year off. We're going ahead. And I want to give a big shout out to Martin and all the people at Elgin County Pride for pulling together such a cool event, and actually having an in-person event as well, all for Pride in Elgin County. And it's so incredible. I want to start with you, Murphy. You mentioned, I think Pride's a great resource, and it's only going to grow and expand. And when we can get together, you find more and more community and family. But what other resources are you involved in or connected to that people might be able to look for if they're finding things outside of Pride time, maybe throughout the year? So why don't you start?
Yeah, for sure. So personally, I'm working with PFLAGs. We do have our youth group running on one of the Thursdays of the month. I believe it's the third one. You can find all that information on the PFLAG Facebook page. There are also groups for other ages. The youth group is for, I believe, ages 7 to 17 or 18. But there are also ones for partners, for parents, for just friends. It is parents and friends of lesbians and gays. So PFLAG groups are still running virtually. They're working towards doing hybrid models and eventually in-person meetings once it's safe enough to do so.
That's great. PFLAG has some incredible resources, and they have some incredible leaders there. Devon, where are you finding your community? I know that you don't have a lot of time because you work a lot, but where are you finding your community? What other resources are you connected with?
I'm on Grindr and Scruff for work, and find that I talk to a lot of people on there, awkwardly enough, because they'll ask nurse questions and then I just check in on them. But I've also found that I joined Rainbow Optimist, and through that, I have community that we work together on stuff, trying to put events together. But for the most part, my community is people that I've known and grown up with, or that I've met off of different apps looking for friends, or Facebook, or the big, tiny queer world of everyone knowing everyone. And through word of mouth, oh, you should meet this person. And then I get a Facebook request. So for the most part, right, it's either through work, because I do work so much, or someone's like, oh, you'd love my queer little grandkid. I'm going to introduce you. And I'm like, oh, your grandkid. But they're in their 30s. So, right? Most people I meet is from other people around here, right?
Family. We're a huge family, so we just end up meeting each other back and forth, and it's interesting how you meet everybody, and all of a sudden, you come out, and then all of a sudden you have 1,000 LGBTQ plus friends. It's really cool, and it's a big family. I'm glad you mentioned Rainbow Optimist Club of Southwestern Ontario. They do such a great job, and they're supporting Elgin County Pride. And they do things all year round as well. So you can become a member, join that network. It's also nice to see that shows are opening up. As you said, there are drag shows that are coming. And I know we're talking small town pride, but it's nice to see venues in London opening up too that are safe queer spaces as well. So I want to give you both kind of a final thought on small town pride and what pride means to you, if there's anything that we kind of missed. Maybe Murphy, I'll make you start.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, if I had to sum up small town pride in one sentence, it would be truly finding your neighbors. They don't live next door, but they're still your neighbors.
That's perfect. And Devon, why don't I follow that theme? Is there one sentence you could sum up?
But I just want to say, won't you be my neighbor? That's what I want to say to that movie. That is awesome. I'm proud of where we've been, and I'm proud of where we're going. And being from here, I can only see the positives that have happened. So I'm just looking forward to the prides to come.
Yeah, I can't wait. And so a big thank you to both of you for joining me, and for Elgin County Pride for letting us have this privilege to, you know, get our voices out, hopefully make more connections. You're both going to have all these extra messages asking to add you to all the social media, and Devon, obviously, Grinder and Scruff. So there you go. You already threw it out there. So happy Pride to everyone at Elgin County Pride, in Elgin County, and we'll see you next time. Take care.